You may remember our next guest. Mark Warner was the nominated candidate for the Conservative Party in the riding of Toronto Centre, and he was ready to take on Bob Rae. Ready, that is, until the Conservative Party last October pulled his nomination, removed him from it, saying that he was, quote unquote, off message too much. Well, Mr. Warner is joining us now, and Mr. Warner, the by-election there is a week from tomorrow in the riding of Toronto Centre. You were ready to run against Bob Rae. How are you going to vote?
Well, I actually have decided to support Bob Rae, Craig. I had waited a while before making a formal endorsement of Bob because I wanted to show some deference to the supporters and volunteers who had been with me in the riding since last February, from February through last October. And also I wanted to give my replacement a chance to speak and to attend some meetings and to give him the benefit of the doubt. I've been really quite outraged by some of the comments he's been making at local meetings, and I've been more outraged by the actions of the current government in interfering in the American election. And so I thought it's now is the appropriate time for me to say publicly how I intend to vote, and that will be for Bob Rae.
Have you ripped up your Conservative card, and are you now a Liberal? Do you have a Liberal card now?
Well, I did get rid of the Conservative card at the end of the year, and I have purchased a Liberal card. I will be supporting certainly the Liberal Party in this riding in this election.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to run for the Liberals somewhere in this next election?
Well, I did notice that there were some positive things said about me by Mr. Dion last fall, and I have had some discussions, but there are no ongoing discussions, Craig, at this time, so really nothing to report on that front.
What do you have to say about the principals, the key people who removed you from office? Who were they,
Look,
and what role have they played in recent politics?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found quite striking is the similarity of the names that have been coming up in some of these recent scandals. Of course, the pivotal person in removing me was the National Campaign Director and Campaign Manager Doug Findlay, who I have to say is one of the most cynical people I've ever come across. His whole idea was that we run a cookie-cutter campaign, in his words, and that we don't adapt in any way to the realities of Toronto Centre. And in his words, the voters don't care who I am or what I've done. Basically, we just run a campaign with funny little pictures of Stéphane Dion. Also, I would say, obviously, Ian Brodie, whose name's come up in the current scandal, the NAFTA-Gate scandal, would also have been involved. And there's a kind of there seems to be a belief among the people in that circle that they can control any event at the riding association level, and now apparently even an American presidential election.
Yeah, some people, of course, are going to say this is sour grapes on your part, that you're particularly angry at Mr. Findlay, and therefore why wouldn't you call him cynical? Is this get-even time for you, though, Mr. Warner?
I don't think so. I've waited. I think I've been very calm and so try to be very rational and balanced in my comments since October. I have not formally endorsed Bob Rae before now. I've waited, and as I said, I've waited to let my replacement speak, and in some ways, he's gone into candidates' meetings and said things that offended some of the key supporters I had. And frankly, we have a very historic election in the United States, and I cannot understand in any respect why our government is interfering in that election in the attempt to elect, it looks like the first credible attempt to elect a black American president. And I think that cynicism is just too much for me to take, so I thought I should at least tell people the decision that I've made. I know some of my supporters will stay at home. I know some will vote Green, but I think it's fair for me to say to the public that I will be voting for Bob Rae in this election.
That's quite a switch. You were going to compete against him, now you're going to vote for him. Mr. Warner, thanks for talking to us this Sunday. We appreciate it.
Thank you.